Hello. Good morning, everybody. This is the second episode of my daily morning show, the morning tip off with myself. And I've got a very special guest today. Hello, Katie Heindel.
Good morning.
Good morning. This is Katie, everybody, co-host of Dishes and Dimes. You might have heard of it. Creator of Basketball Feelings, co-host of Basketball, writer at Dime, Complex, Yahoo Sports Canada, Rolling Stone, and Basketball News. Am I forgetting anything, Katie? You're everywhere.
Yeah, that's the most recent rundown. So that's good for now. I'm sure I'll add a couple more bylines, hopefully, as the new year progresses.
All right. I mean, I'm sure you will. And there's a ton to talk about in this like really weird NBA season as well. Okay, so just before we get into talking to Katie and some of the pieces that she's put out right now, kind of want to get some news out of the way. The NBA Special Board of Governors meeting will be happening today, as per Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN. And then yesterday, the GMs had a conference call to discuss like tightening protocols. Apparently, they're going to be making some changes, possibly to practice lengths, to shoot arounds, to pre and post game socializing. So like no Jason Tatum, Bradley Bealing yourselves, because you will have to be out for a couple of weeks. And yeah, some restaurant and dining stuff. So I guess without a bubble, the NBA just really needs to tighten down because games are being postponed left, right, and center.
Yeah, I mean, it seems weird that they waited this long, to like tighten stuff up. I mean, I guess on one hand, you can't know what's not working until it stops working. But also if like the data and proof that like really loose restrictions around COVID don't work, I feel like is out there. We're in like almost a year of like testing this. So I'm glad that they did that. Like, I'm glad that they've put some more restrictions in, but I don't know if it's just like, don't go to restaurants that's really going to solve it.
No, especially because these players most of these players are probably not living at home and are their families not going out, especially if they live in a city without. So it's just, there's really no way to control this, but the NBA is going to do its darndest. And we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But they've got to do something because it's so crazy to me that like almost a year ago in March, the entire league was shut down and like Rudy Gobert became this like villain. And like people were so mad at him for how reckless he was and all of this stuff. And now it's like, oh yeah, JV just gets pulled in the second half because he might have COVID. And of course, he tested negative. And then it's like, oh yeah, Seth Curry was sitting on the bench or like was doing shoot around or something at the start of the game before being pulled, and he did test positive for COVID. So it's like, how lax have these rules become in just a month's time?
None of that stuff makes sense because it's all like team to team to team, right? So if one team's like, like this is how we understand contact tracing, and another team's like, we'll just trace the immediate player, versus like, well, this player's now had contact with the entire team staff, like everybody around them. Yeah, so hopefully they get a firmer handle on that kind of stuff. But I think the NBA has obviously just made it clear, like they want games to continue.
Yeah, and like Adam Silver has said that like he thought January would be the worst month, and so I mean, I hope he's right because like I can't possibly see this happening into the playoffs.
Well, it couldn't, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. Then what would you do? You would like maybe split the conference down the middle and just be like, okay, we're not going to do cross-country travel. We'll just have like an Eastern and Western conference or something and in-game play there. But I feel like that's like their worst case scenario.
Yeah. Like what would ratings, like I can't even, I don't want to think about it, but yeah, this is so strange. All right, let's actually move on to some more depressing news.
Great, good.
The Toronto Raptors.
Oh no.
But I have you in to talk about. So you wrote this really beautiful piece that was depressing, but like wonderfully written on the status of Toronto Raptors basketball and what ails them. So I thought you'd be the perfect expert on this Tuesday morning, as all of us are coping from some heartbreaking back-to-back losses.
Yeah.
How can you save us right now? What's ailing this team, actually? Let's start with that.
In writing that story, I kind of hoped to like approach it a little bit more clinically and less emotionally from like a fan standpoint, and really try and break it down. Like, okay, here's what could be these kind of more ingrained issues, like everything from continuation from the bubble to obviously losing Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol in free agency to now just like this really stuttery sort of start. I don't know that I have solutions. I do think I kind of like, to me, like identified the problems, which are like definitely more, I think, ingrained when you just look at like a big point I wanted to make was just like the top down leadership.
Yeah.
And then just like changes, cultural changes, and now just like applicable changes on the floor to the roster. You know, like Nurse keeps saying he's so frustrated about having to answer questions about the starting lineup, but it's like, you're going to have to answer questions about the starting lineup until you have like a serviceable, like reliable starting lineup. You know what I mean?
Have to know what their starting lineup is. I don't think they have it figured out. So of course you're gonna have to answer questions about that.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you know, to my point, like that's kind of it. It's like, I know that he's frustrated, players are frustrated, but like I wanted to look at the reason for that frustration, you know what I mean? And just see like, are they doing a good enough job of addressing it and like talking about things out in the open? And in some cases, I don't think they have been. I think there's been a little bit, like since I wrote that, honestly, and since they went on this road trip, I think there's been a bit of there's like a different feeling, like there's a different like kind of palpable feeling of the Raptors. People are saying like, oh, you know, like I recognize this team, and I do recognize this specific team a little bit more. So I hope they've just like, you know, started to have like better communication or just like feeling themselves a little bit more. But I think I think those two big things, like this has always been a franchise that's been super transparent, either with its players or with, you know, to a degree with the fan base. And it's like always been a franchise that really thrives on like internal relationships and the culture. And I think both of those things took a big hit before the season started.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a good way to put it. This has definitely been a franchise that, like, I mean, we've seen it, whether it was the Siakam and Jakob pairing or the DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry pairing. And I don't know that we're seeing as much really fun off the court, although this is a strange year for them. I wonder how much do you think that, like, maybe it's a sigh of relief from the fans seeing Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster at a game in Golden State? Because when talking about a lack of trust from the top down, not knowing what's going to happen with both of those guys, I think has a lot of fans a little bit weary. I don't know how much it's actually affecting on-court performance and production, maybe in terms of trades and stuff like that, but we won't have a sense or a feel of what's going on. But how much do you think that, like, maybe a sigh of relief from the fans, because I do think fans have sighed a little bit of have exhaled a little bit, even though the team is 2-8. And do you think that has anything to do with it?
Yeah, I mean, like that was one of the things I pointed out. Like they were so visible in the bubble. I think necessarily so. But then as the bubble continued, like I don't think both of them had to stay, but like they did. They were there. They were
there.
Yeah. They were both like, they were at games. They were just like walking around the campus. They just like, they made themselves seen. And it wasn't a point of like, oh, we need to be seen. It's just, they were always around. And I think with the Warriors game, I feel like that was a little bit like, we need to be seen, because I think they'd kind of been largely out of the public eye or broadcast eye or whatever in Tampa so far. And like, yeah, like to your point, they both still haven't signed their contracts. So like, I don't know. I'm always curious, like how much that affects the players. Like, do they care about it? Or are they like, I just want my deal done? But I feel like it must to a degree, because it's going to set out what the future of that franchise looks like, right? Like it's going to look really different if it's like, is it now like, are we at the point where Bobby's totally going to take the helm and take over? Or does Masai still have, like, does he still want kind of like a hands-on approach with the team? I think there's some, like, there's a need for clarity there of like, who's leading this, you know, and who's going to dictate kind of the terms going forward, especially when we're sort of looking at like, does this team now need to acquire like a big, do they need to acquire new players? Like who makes those decisions?
They need to acquire a big. Yeah. For the love of God. Oh gosh, when people talk about Andre Drummond in years past, I would have cringed, and now I'm like thinking about it, and I'm like, where
he looks good. Yeah, I know.
Oh my god! And then just remembering the Ujiri telling JV like, "You are better than Andre Drummond," and now I'm like, "Andre, be our savior."
I know. Please come here, Andre.
Back. And I think it's hard to talk about a lack of trust with this team, and maybe less so on the court, but more so with fans towards this team, without mentioning the man whose name we do not say.
Redacted. Yeah, and I think like that's for me, like personally, I will say like that's a huge part of I think where my own trust and the way I just like look at the franchise has wavered from like a sort of feel good like entity where it's like there's a lot of communication and trust to like, oh, they're a business at the end of the day. They kind of look at their bottom line, whether that's like who is producing on the roster, who's worth like hanging on to, and like to a degree, like who's worth protecting. Because I think like what we're seeing, I don't see it from Davis that it's been worthwhile thus far, obviously, but like maybe they're hoping, I've seen some people say like maybe they're hoping that like this makes him more attractive for a trade down the road. But I'm not even clear that like that's going to happen.
His value.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I think he might be the worst defender on the team right now.
It's pretty bad. Yeah, it's pretty bad. But like, I think like that shook us all. Like we talked about that like in our Dishes and Dimes, like group chats and on the show. Like that is something that I think threw us all for a bit of a loop and just like, oh, this isn't the team. This isn't like they talked a different game than the one they're playing, with like the domestic assault situations. I still think like they should have either, just cut him like and waived him initially, or it's like, why is he now getting meaningful minutes? So it's really hard to reconcile.
Other guys, and it's not like his production on the court warrants it. So like, what are we doing?
Yeah, what are we doing? And like that's one of the things where it's like you got to decide the kind of team you want to be. You can't have it both ways. And this was the first situation I think where the Raptors actually like had to come down and like make a firm decision, which they still really haven't made yet. So I still feel hanging like in a little bit of limbo, honestly, when I watch the team.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. Now, we kind of had a really depressing start to the show.
Yeah.
You have a positive for this Raptor season to, kind of calm us fans a little bit, because I'm a little sad this morning.
What can we say? Let's see. It's tough. I think like
solo game on you as you decide this.
All right. I think what we're seeing is like, this nice little glimmer of like the past team that we know and love and are used to. But I think you're still primarily just seeing that in Kyle Lowry's ability to like toss the team on his back. You're sort of seeing that in Pascal's return, whether we want to call it a return or maybe like a move forward into like this next iteration of himself. He's still playing. He's just like playing like he means it a little bit more. He's got a little bit of that swagger back. Fred, I think, has been like, so like just like a constant gravitational force, and I think a necessary one. He's just trying so hard. He's like completely unflappable. He's very reliable. He's like what the team needs right now. It's just I worry that we're going to be positive, so I won't say that it's going to wear on him. He's up for the task. And I guess we could say that like even though this road trip is super weird, the team has said as much. Like they're just living in hotels. They're going to cities where it's like, it seems Nick Nurse, I think, said it felt really eerie so far where they've been on the road, just because like there aren't people out and about. But, this is a team that does historically well on the road. They're sort of used to that challenge. And I think if they needed something to kind of shake them out of the funk of Tampa and like their new home game situation, then this could potentially be the thing that does it. I trust Lowry by now. And like he said, again and again, like we know he's like, this isn't an acceptable record to have, but like, just like keep your eye on us. Like we're building towards something. He's like, I can feel it. Like things are going to turn around. So I trust that man.
I mean, yeah, I trust Lowry with my life at this point. At any point, why am I acting like there's a marker measure? And honestly, I logged on to Twitter this morning and I was just scrolling through. I don't think Raptor fans need a pep talk.
No.
It's so funny because like the last few weeks, like we know that Raptor fans are crazy, and I say that in a very loving way as a crazy Raptor fan myself. And it seemed like there was a lot of Raptor slander going around, and people weren't pushing back. They weren't fighting. They were kind of just like, yeah, the team is trash right now. What can I say? And today I come on and like people are just being attacked for like these like minuscule opinions, and I'm like, they're back. The Raptors are back clearly because fans are back. I don't know if they need much of a pep talk, but I needed it. So thank you for that.
I tried.
Honestly, the solo cam was really just so I can take a sip of coffee.
Yeah, so you could have some coffee.
Yeah, so I can have my coffee break. And I'd like to have a coffee break with you right now, and just stop talking about basketball because it's been kind of a depressing talk, and talk a little bit dishes and dimes. Talk a little bit about the fact that like our 1 year anniversary is fast approaching. How crazy is that?
That's super bizarre to me. I mean, also just considering like when you think, I think it's like when you look at also like obviously the year that was, but like how we started, I look at us like you and I when we first met, and we were like
the first person I met. Technically, Mel was the first person I met, but you were the first person that I met right now.
But like when we kind of got it off the ground and our like big ideas, we were so like bright-eyed and like hopeful, and then just like, but like not our trajectory. Our trajectory has actually been very steady. Like nothing can stop us, but just like
Siakam, like first year starting level trajectory.
Yeah. I mean, it's wild that it's almost been a year. That is like, I'm very proud of us. I'm very, very proud of us.
Very long at the same time. Like, I'm like, wow, it's almost been a year. And also I'm like, wow, I've only been doing this for a year. Like, it feels like at the same time.
It does.
Like,
it does.
do you remember? Because, okay, so I remember you and I just like messaging each other initially. And then we like went to go meet. And I was just like, will I recognize her on the street? Oh yeah, I'll recognize her on the street. And then like I saw you on the street and I was like, hi. And I just remember it was like a cold day. I was like trudging in from work back when like a commute was a thing. And I had like my giant winter jacket on, and it was like November, maybe? Do you remember?
No, there was snow on the ground. It must have been December. Like early December.
Yeah, probably December. That makes sense. There was snow on the ground. And it was like, it was cold, it was snowing. And I remember being on the China streetcar and just like there being slush everywhere and just being like, oh, this like sucks, but I'm also excited, and just like all this stuff. And then a year later, we're trapped at home, and I would probably trade the commute and the sludge just to be around humans again. So
I know. Yeah, like I commute to like hang out with everybody.
Yeah.
But I think the commuting days to work are done.
Oh yeah, no, I'm so done with that. No. I meant to like to this one place, not to work every morning. I can't do it. No. I literally, if I had to commute, I wouldn't be able to do this show in the morning. This is taking my commute time.
And look how much more productive it is. You know what I mean?
I get to have my coffee. I get to I don't have people breathing on my neck. I'm not get a bus that's gonna leave me, and then I have to wait 10 hours for the next one to come.
You get to get your Raptors angst out in a productive way.
I get to get my Raptors angst out in a very productive way, as opposed to just like swearing and muttering under my breath because it's so cold, which is the other way that I do it.
Yeah.
So do you remember, I wanted to ask you, and I don't know if I remember this, but do you remember how you joined Dishes and Dimes? Like what that process was like?
I'm thinking. I think, well, Sandy reached out to all of us, right? And she was just like, I
think I might have reached out to her. She might have reached, I can't remember.
I feel like you and Sandy, I think both were like, would you want to do something like this? But like Sandy had been the one impetus who was just like, I think we need this. We have like the people for it. Why doesn't this exist already? And then I think we all kind of gravitated together after that. But you were definitely involved in asking me, and I was like, yeah, like, why not? Like, I would never say no to that, and I'm glad I didn't.
Good morning, Sidra. You beautiful humans.
Oh.
How did Sidra get let in? Well, Sandy, what was the reason?
I mean, it wouldn't be the same without Sidra, frankly.
No, it wouldn't be at all. Sidra. I'm totally kidding. But yeah, I was wondering that. So I'm gonna take credit for Katie being a part of Dishes and Dimes.
Yeah, I think you could. I think you should.
Totally.
But sometimes I think of how depressed I would be if I wasn't. Like if I watched everyone have the year that they had, and I had been like, no, I'm too busy, or like I can't do that right now, and now I would just be like like crushed basically.
I think I would
like,
be as
please
well.
let me in.
Yeah, I thought about that too. I was like, if I wasn't a part of Dishes and Dimes right now, I'd be kind of like, I would be sad because like I know that like it was happening, and like I remember talking to Sandy. I remember being excited about it, but like I kind of feel like it. Maybe I might have said no, or like I don't remember what the reasoning was, but I do feel like there was a part of me that was just like it. I think you know what I think it was. I think we all talked about this in like November, and we didn't get off until January. Like middle of January is when the show kicked off. So like there was a 2-month period where it felt like, are we starting? Is this happening? What's happening? And I feel like at that time, yeah. But I'm glad it all worked out.
It did. I mean, and we're all like, that's the thing. I think everyone was super busy and was like, had a lot on their plate. And then like, you know, we all just were like, you know what, we're going to commit to this. Look what happened. And now I'm glad we do, because like, yeah, this is, it's been such like a meaningful thing to have, like just in terms of like production of like what we're doing and growth, right. But also like, I don't know, our community, like the group, to just be able to like, to talk to everybody like throughout this whole thing. It's like
therapeutic. I've learned a lot from every single person. I think there's just like a great sharing of ideas. And also I do think that like female voices on the Raptors needed to be amplified in a way that wasn't happening at the time. Because there were, and there still are, tons of great podcasts. But there are very few women hosts. And it's like, I go online and like most of my funniest followers, most of my creative followers, you know, the people who say the most outlandish things, they're a perfect example. You know what I mean? Like Yasmin, Kelsey, like just across the board, and like people who aren't even a part of Dishes and Dimes as well. And just like incredibly creative and funny, whether it's Emma or Kate, Indu, there's so many. And I'm like, why are women not also doing podcasts? Like, why am I not listening to that? And it was something that I wanted to hear. So it was really cool that I got to be a part of it as well. All right. So now that we're done with our coffee break, I want to flip the script really, really quickly. I want to ask you, we talked a little bit negative about the Toronto Raptors. They're a team that's clearly sputtering, terrible.
Sputtering and stuttering. Yeah.
I'm sputtering and stuttering as well. But what's a team that's or a player or anything that's kind of been a bright side to this weird, wacky season?
I have to say, like the Suns, like the way the Suns have started off, like though I don't think I'm not so surprised by them. I'm just like very thrilled that Chris Paul is doing exactly why they acquired him is because they wanted someone that could like give that team a more of like a mature guidance and identity, and I think like a framework to work within. But oh no, I lost my train of thought. That he's so happy there. You know what I mean? Like I think what he is working towards now it's unfortunate because I also think it's what he could have accomplished in OKC had he stayed, because the makeup of those two teams are like pretty similar. I think just Phoenix is a few tiers more ahead and like ready to be in the playoffs, you know what I mean? And I think OKC's got a couple more years and I guess 1 million draft picks to get there. But yeah, I think the Suns have been like such a phenomenal thing to watch. I was going to say the Knicks, but they're sort of evening out as like normal basketball rules like require. Who else? I looked at the standings this morning because I knew we were going to talk about this, but I was a little bit sad to see like, oh wait, it's sort of evened out. Like in the East, it's now like
the Hawks have kind of fallen. Like a lot of the teams have a hot start.
It's like your top three. It's like the top three that you expected. Like, you know, the Sixers, the Celtics, the Bucks, and then I'm like, oh, the Raptors should be right there, but they're not. And in the West, you've got like the Lakers and the Clippers and like the Jazz. So I think like it's starting to make a little bit.
About the memo, this was a fake season. Too bad the Raptors didn't.
We're like we've committed to the fake season, and everyone else gave up on it. But I don't know.
Commitment issue.
Trying to think like players wise. It's been really nice to see like.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say Embiid. I feel like it's been really nice to see Embiid like performing and seemingly having fun.
Yeah, for sure. I was thinking like Gordon Hayward this last week has just like kind of had an incredible week. He had a career high, and like the Charlotte Hornets are kind of a team that like, sure they're like 6-4 or something. They're above 500, which is a feat this season because it seems like so few teams have a better record. They've got the longest winning streak in the league right now at 4. Might maybe tied for the Celtics, but the Celtics have had games postponed, so I'm throwing them out the window. Also, I just don't want to talk about the Celtics in a positive light right now.
That's fair.
But Gordon Hayward he had a career high 44 points. He also had 28 points in the first half yesterday. His stats have been incredible. He's shooting over 55% in the last 4 games from the floor, over 50% from 3, over 90% from the free throw line. So he's just putting up insane numbers. And the Hornets are winning and doing what I didn't think was possible, which is be over 500. What a beautiful
I think even last week when we were looking at this week for like our live show, we were like, oh, we don't want to do like a show in front of the Hornets game because like
who cares about the Hornets? And now the Raptors play them, and Gordon Hayward has been going off.
He has.
I completely forgot that that's what the Raptors' next home and home. No, it's literally a home and home. The Raptors are playing twice. It's not like the traditional home and home where it's a home for one team and a home for the other team. All right. So before we let you go, because we are almost coming to the end of our time, you have a basketball advice column, and I thought I would ask you a question. All right. So I want you to give me some not bad advice. Which is so clever because NBA. It's very, very clever. So
it's like pandemic clever. It's like that's where my mind's at these days, you know.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So as a sad Raptors fan, heartbroken over a 2-8 season, stuck indoors all day due to health and safety protocols, need some advice on how to cope through the rest of these cold winter months.
Oh, okay. I would say this is a great time as a Raptors fan to maybe like diversify your fan experience, your basketball experience, dip a toe. Imman, like I know this isn't you. This is like a theoretical you that already doesn't watch. You watch a lot of basketball. You already know what's going on with the league. But for a Raptors specific fan, it is a great time to familiarize yourself with the rest of the league, whether in the East or the West. Maybe there are teams you normally don't get to catch in a regular season because you don't care, or the Raptors are playing really well in times past. So I think now, just like with all the shakeups that happened in free agency, I think we should give more credit to what was being called like a poor draft class, which I think is really dumb way of framing athletes. But I think that, you know, a lot of these rookies are performing in ways they probably didn't anticipate that they would have to, just given like roster situations on a lot of teams, and they're thriving, they're doing super well. So I think just like pick another team, like pick a secondary team, you know, like the Raptors are always going to be in your heart, but like it's a great year to just pick, like, to test another team out, you know, and get to know them.
If you're a Raptors fan and you're struggling with this, a great way to cope with picking another team is you're going to find players you like, and then you're just going to make up trade scenarios to get them to the Raptors anyway. So really, while you're watching these other teams, you're really just scouting.
Yeah, it's a scouting exercise.
That's the way I get through other teams' games. I'm just like, this is a scouting exercise. Who do I like here? How would they fit on the Toronto Raptors? And that's how you get watching the other 29 boring teams.
Yeah, that's really good advice too. It's like try your hand at being like a GM situation, fire up the ESPN trade machine, throw a couple trades in there. I've been doing it. It's like weirdly soothing. It can be really soothing. It'll take your mind off things for a little while.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Katie. Thank you for your great advice. And thank you for joining me. Thank you for the lovely article that I think was helping a lot of Raptor fans kind of get through what was ailing them so much. And Dishes and Dimes is going to be putting out some more stuff next week. We're going to be doing something for a special anniversary. And yeah, you can check you out on all of your places. Do you have anything you would like to plug before we let you go?
Just if people want to actually write in questions for Not Bad Advice, you can do that. I made a very smart, clever Gmail address for that, which is Ann, A-N-N, Landry Fields, one word. So Ann Landry, like the columnist, Landry Fields, like the legend, at gmail.com. Send me your questions.
I feel like Landry Fields would also give great advice.
He seems like he would. He's like a thoughtful guy. He had a lot of time on his hands to not play basketball, maybe answer some cues. Yeah.
Why not? Why not? All right. Thank you so much, Katie.
Thanks, Imman.
Bye, everybody.